I don't want it to be too loud, so I tend to have a booming voice. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much to our organizers. Amazing conference. I think the single most distracting thing this week has been the smoker and the grill outside. Amazing food. I used to run conferences for Microsoft, and I don't think we've ever had such amazing food. So thank you once again for an amazing event. So my name is TJ Campana. I came from 12 years at Microsoft, where we developed a number of teams to combat systemic threats. So you may have heard of some of the teams that we developed out of legal and corporate affairs, so the digital crimes unit. So probably about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we started building out a capability and a framework to go on the offense against systemic threats to the Microsoft ecosystem. It was called the MARS program. What I've done over the past 4.5 years with Microsoft, with HSBC now, is start to go back to the defensive side. So how in a large-scale organization can you defend against an evolving threat? And I know that many of the folks in this room experience that. So you're hackers, application security testers, red teamers, developers, SOC analysts. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about what HSBC is, because I was told that most of you didn't know what HSBC was until probably this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the opportunities and the challenges. We're also going to talk about the approach that we're taking, kind of multidimensional threat. So network defense is evolving. It's absolutely not the same as it was 10 years ago. So the opening joke is, and I'm guilty of this as well, we had, when I went to interview for HSBC in London, I really didn't have a good understanding of what HSBC was. But I travel a lot all over the world, and I kept seeing this logo at every airport. So I thought maybe we were a marketing company. Turns out we're one of the largest financial services organizations in the world. We connect customers with opportunity, and we make sure that global trade happens. 3,900 offices, 67 countries, 38 million customers. And the only way that we can do this is through a massive network of technology. Our main offices are in New York, London, and Hong Kong, where we always have iconic buildings. So we have 240,000 employees to make this machine work, servicing 38 million customers worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in all of the markets that we serve. Can you imagine what it takes to do that? Always on, always available. So we start to talk about, many of us in this room talk about IDS and web application exploits, SQL injection, things like that, around network defense. That's kind of bread and butter for what we do at HSBC. Every day we have to defend the environment from people that want to get into our estate for a various range of types of attacks. But what folks don't really are starting to understand, and we're starting to adapt to a more of a military type style footprint, is that we also had to defend our customers from malware. So our customers that get infected with malware, banking trojans, etc. We have clients that get infected with malware, or some type of APT attack, trying to go after the payment systems. So you've heard this all in the news. How do we start to get smarter than the adversary when we go after these types of attacks? It's not just one team. It's not just a bunch of geeks in a room looking at some screens. It's not the traditional approach that we're probably all used to. On a daily basis, I find myself connecting with my colleagues in our fraud department that have a vastly different view of the threat landscape to our customers. I get along really great with my geeks, many of which we've brought out here today for the event. That's my wheelhouse. But think about it. How many times have you had conversations with your physical security team? It's easy for us to be geeks because that's our happy place. When we start to talk about holistic defense of our organization and our customer base, we have to start to stretch outside of that type of a perspective. We really have to start to look at what is it that is that holistic defensive mechanism, how is the adversary acting, and where can we deny that adversary access to our environment. So as you can imagine, in security operations, we have all these great metrics. We collect this many billion of events per day, and we have this type of technology, and we have this type of firewall. But the reality is, the adversary is always trying to go after the place where you're the weakest. Even if you're strong across the board, you're going to have that one place where you're weak. And that might be at a customer site or a third party. It may be in an application that you just deployed. You'll see a lot of the vendors that are out here today talking about that network visibility and the ability to understand what your environment looks like on any given day. I sat through the presentation from the gentleman from Mozilla. Now imagine if you're able to take that view of the environment, that view of your application stack, and merge it up with cybercrime type statistics. External statistics from crime waves that may impact your physical security posture. This is what we're talking about when we talk about security operations of the future. It's a merged, fused capability. Most governments around the world have already realized this. They've been doing this for years and years and years. When we start to talk about private sector, we can see that they're starting to adopt that over the last 5 years. So you see a number of organizations that have built out Fusion Center capability. But what does that Fusion Center give you? The Fusion Center gives you the ability to have situational awareness across multiple areas of threat, multiple domains of threat. It allows you to be more proactive when you start to go after some of the adversaries coming after you. So if you understand your adversary's motive might be a network attack coupled with a malware attack against your customers, again, the multidimensional element of the threat that we're facing, you can be ahead of the game. So that's the challenge that we face now. How do we get from where we are today to where the future is? Well, it's smart people, quite frankly. It's you. It's the geeks. The geeks will lead us to the promised land. Because we understand data. We understand the challenges that we face. So part of what we're looking for is, and one of the reasons that we're out here in Krakow this week, is we're recruiting for our security operations. But we're looking for people that have that mindset. So I've been in discussions. So I took over this role about 8 months ago, and we've been in discussions constantly about org design and where do we put people and what shape and size. But the whole conversation has been about people. It's about the individuals that bring that certain perspective, that certain piece of the puzzle to the organization. So we've been in Krakow for a long time. We've been in Krakow for years and years and years. But what does it mean to build out that full stack security operations center and bring in that fused capability? So a lot of times you hear people talking about outsource. Outsource doesn't work. Outsource is software. Think about that. Full stack capability means building out a fully capable set of individuals in each of the locations where you operate. So the ability for us to have threat hunters, escalation engineers, watch commanders, all of these different people in all of the locations where we operate, and connecting them in new and interesting ways using technology, that's the future. It's not sending easy-to-do jobs offshore. It's more about making sure that the people that you have in a different location have that capability to do the job that they need to do. So we're currently building out a capability here in Krakow. So we currently have software developers, we have IT administrators, we have business business analysts. But what we're really building out from the cybersecurity perspective is a technology stack and an operations stack. So our ability to have the global visibility that we have within the organization ready at fingertips. So currently what we're looking at is, I don't even know how many billions of events per day. Probably around 10 to 15 billion events per day come into our SOC. We're probably going to quadruple that this year. So think about that. 60 billion events coming in per day. There's no way that we can look at that many events. So how do we get smart about that? So we have all kinds of technology. You see them all across the room. Yeah, Splunk or QRadar or Purple Rainbow or whatever it is that we want to do. But when you start to look at the ability for us to process that amount of data and actually make it meaningful for network defense, that's a whole new ballgame. I don't think that there's many organizations that are actually doing that today. I think by and large, we're looking at the tech companies that probably have the best position in this. So when we talk about what it is that we want to do for next generation security operations, it's instrumenting our environment appropriately, making sure we get the data that we need, having the technology behind that data, but it all starts with people. It all starts with smart people coming in, understanding what that vision is, and knowing that they have a piece of the puzzle to play. So one of the big pieces that I have here in Krakow is working with the Polish CERT, working with the universities in Krakow and in Warsaw, understanding what it is that they need to do in order to prepare students for the future. So how do we get people in the door, ready to contribute immediately upon entering the organization? The skill sets that we have in this room and at this conference are not easily attained. You can't just take a class and become a cybersecurity expert. It's people that have that experience and pass that experience on. So for me, it's important to be here because I want to learn, constantly learning. I want to talk to individuals that are interested in taking us to the next generation, but I also want to know more about what it is that you find interesting. So there's a lot more to do. One of the big things I would say is many of you have come over to our booth. It's the big booth in the back room. Today we have ice cream, so that's been a big hit. We've got some retro video games. The wall actually turns into a video game. More importantly, we have a lot of staff on hand, ready to have those conversations. We'd like to talk to you a little bit more about what you see as your part in the growth of our organization. So this is one of the mottos that we have for our organizations: together we thrive. It's one of the key pieces that keeps us together as an organization. It's one of the things that we try to imbibe in our culture. So I'm looking forward to having more conversations with individuals. We'd like to leave here with some more information about you, get you more information about us. But I would love to open up the rest of the session to conversation. You have any questions, concerns, or any things that you want to talk about while you have me here? I know we have a microphone, correct? No? Is there a microphone that you pass to the audience? Or are there any questions? I mean, I could talk for 30 more minutes if you'd like. If not, go to lunch. Thank you.